Welcome back to Dousman, Wisconsin for round 3 of the 2024 U.S. Pro Kart Series. One of 3 live days of action has been completed to this point. My name's Xander Clemens. Alongside me, Alex Searle, Caleb Vieska will be keeping tabs on everything down on pit lane. Final practice and qualifying was what we were able to bring to you yesterday afternoon, and now here this morning, getting started with the warm-up sessions for your micro-slip division and the beginning of all 7 classes here. The T Ferris Racing micro-slip class saw Zane Burgess go to the top at the end of yesterday's qualifying by a bit of a margin over the rest of the field. Miguel Manzano Suarez was quick. The Godshock brothers there were following Win Godshock also fast. But for the youngest superstars, they're leading us off with our morning coverage, our free coverage here of the day's action from Dousman, Wisconsin. And once again, Alex, more storms rolled in last night. Not nearly as damp as what we started with Friday afternoon as the rain continued through the day. We've had obviously some good amount of sunshine here this morning, but there's quite a bit of wetness on the racetrack, especially offline.
Yeah, for sure. I saw a bunch of teams, a bunch of drivers doing a track walk this morning. More important than ever, as we see a late move there from Easton Kaminsky, just testing out the grip into turn 1. Like you said, offline, you can see kind of the rubber buildup that has been washed away. So it's a brand new racetrack once again for these micro-swift drivers. They were the first one to hit kind of the dry racetrack in yesterday's happy hour and qualifying. Once again, another challenge for the youngest superstars that we have. You don't want to do what one of the Bennett drivers there did there, put a tire in the grass. I assume we're going to see a bunch of that this morning. The grass, obviously, as it gets wet overnight, it's going to take a while for the grass itself to dry, but the rest of the racetrack seems to be pretty dry. I will say the racing line that we saw build yesterday with all the rubber being laid down from happy hour and qualifying is seemingly gone, and so it's a bit of a green racetrack because there's a huge storm, like you mentioned, that hit the racetrack last night. So again, testing the waters on where they can find some grip and expect to be making some passes in the heat races.
Quickest off the bat right now is the 55 of Zane Burgess, yesterday's top qualifier. Jaden Francisco flying on by. We saw a couple go off there on the back hairpin corners, which, again, that Rhino liner that has so much grip in the dry, it doesn't have nearly as much when it is any bit damp. The only good part is it's such a dark surface color that it does dry out pretty quick. As you can see, the sun is shining down here this morning. Still, it's a much brighter picture than yesterday. Temperatures are a bit lower to start the day, around the same as where things were most of yesterday afternoon. We're expecting a little more heat later on, probably by the time we get through the first round of heat races, which for those following, and we've got 3 rounds on deck here today as more passes there. That is a slowing Dutch Westbrook there in the 33 Bennett, trying to find a hole in the middle of this pack. They have nearly collided, it feels like, 3 or 4 times in just this one lap that we've been following along. But leading the group now, a couple of U-Race Paralins, the 21 machine and the 50. Dor Ehrlich in the 50, and then the 21.
Yeah, the 21 of Cheveri there. He's one of the U-Race drivers. But I think interesting to note here, the top 3, similar, actually identical to what the top 3 in qualifying was yesterday as it stands, with Burgess, Suarez, and Manalio sitting 1, 2, 3 here in morning warm-up. The gap not as large as it was after qualifying. It was 1.5 tenths here in warm-up. It's about 2.5-ish tenths was the gap between Suarez and Burgess, or almost 3.5 tenths actually after qualifying. But Burgess once again puts him on absolute flyer, 51.3, so 3 tenths now is the gap compared to the rest of the field. How about it for Easton Kaminsky now, finding some pace on that AEM karting OTK there. So Easton Kaminsky up to P3. Cam Johnson, a local here at Badger Kart Club on board the Franklin Motorsports Maryland. He's up to 4th. Nalio on the Team Ferris Racing Car Republic there up into 5th. Leo Simone, we saw him have to go out of the slow group in qualifying yesterday. He's found some pace this morning in warm-up. He's up to 6th now.
Yeah, better start to the day for Leo Simone. You know those TKG Car Republic Mini and Micro Slips are fast. Josh Bergman put his inside the top 5 in qualifying yesterday afternoon. Miguel Suarez is the best of the rest once again, though. He's trapped a little bit in traffic, but the RPG Cosmic driver won the opening round of the championship and is looking to kind of even that score, or tip the scales back his way, with Burgess getting the win a month and a half ago at Trackhouse. It is now 1-1 on the head-to-head between the 2 best so far in the U.S. Pro Kart Series Micro Swift division. And we don't get to see it all too often, as Miguel Suarez is up in Mini Swift over at the SCUSA Pro Tour. And the RPG camp not in attendance yet at the Stars Series. So this is the only of the big three championships where we've got those two young drivers going head-to-head. And this warm-up comes to a close. You can give the nod to the 55. 3/10 better for Zane Burgess, a 51.354. Jaden Francisco's Nitro Kart ends up in third. Godshock, Easton Kubinski, Cameron Johnson, one of the many Wisconsin, Franklin-based drivers here this weekend, P6, looking for potentially a first career win after a solid performance a month ago in North Carolina. Jake Manolio, Leo Simone, Luca Becquerel leads a pair of Orsolone Racing Paralins with Mauro Nario right behind him. Then Marcelo Flores, Lawrence Perelman, Sterling Mulatador Ehrlich, and Hudson Howard, the top 15 from morning warm-up here for the micro slip drivers. Let's take a look further back here as you can find your favorite one all the way down to the end with Dutch Westbrook. We saw that there was something, definitely an issue for the 33. So whatever the problem was for Dutch, hopefully he'll be able to sort it when we get back out for heat number one. Here's the 16 through 30 and on back as we switch on over now to the KA100 Juniors. Let's take a look here at the official track map presented by Kart Class from Badger Kart Club as the KA Juniors first and two groups begin to head onto the racetrack and give you a bit of an idea of what this circuit looks like from overhead. This is an old school racetrack. The Kart Class official track preview will take you through all 15 corners here, beginning down at turn number one. Full throttle pretty much for every division, using up that curbing and runoff area, and then the full throttle run over to turn number three. You can sometimes make a move with a brush of the brakes down at turn one because of the run you get leading, but the first major passing zone, Alex, is down there at turn number four, kind of through the sweeper.
Yeah, we've seen a bunch of passes there in turn number four, but this racetrack, like you mentioned, old school track, a lot of passing opportunities, a little bit less of a, drafting sort of racetrack that we see on board, most of the national level circuits. So yeah, turn four, great passing opportunity, but if you can set it up, 5 is even a better passing opportunity because it leads to a left-hander for 6 and 7. The chicane that we mentioned is from 7 and 8. That's a section of the racetrack where a lot of drivers say it's probably the one place where it's hard to pass because a lot of drivers do an early apex for turn number 8. They kind of hug the corner, a bit of a double apex through 8 and 9, set up for turn number 10. It's a fast sweeping left-hander, then through a flat-out turn 11. Turn 12, as we see Jackson Wolney off the racetrack and out of this warm-up session. A couple drivers struggling. We saw Brady Shad there spin on the outlap, so clearly track still slightly damp out there, Xander, but we'll have to see if we can get a word on the issue for Wolney there. But like I mentioned, flat out through turn 11 there, and then 12 is where the Rhino liner starts. You can see it on the racetrack on the overhead here. The rest of the track is pretty gray, and then through 12 and 13, that's what we call, the Rhino liner section of the racetrack where it's all black, a lot of grip on the inside of the racetrack. If you go a little bit too wide, though, not a lot of grip for you. You see a lot of drivers through 12 especially start the two-wheel as you push a little bit harder. Got to talk to AJ Myers after yesterday's qualifying. He said, listen, I was just trying to push a little bit too hard, and it got away from me there. So happens to the best of them, yeah. So after 12 through 13, another great passing opportunity, and the flat-out 14 and 15 to finish the lap. I mean, this racetrack provides a lot of potential for some great racing.
And let's check in with the rest of it here as we go to the on-track action for the first of the two groups in KA100 Junior. KA Junior saw Turner Brown go to the top in qualifying. He had what he thought was a fast kart in X30 Junior as well, but it wasn't as fast as his 100cc machine. He's on circuit right now along with the rest of them. Enzo Vidmontien, currently quickest of the initial group over Sebastian Garzone, Chase Gassiet lead, Max Weiland, but that's all changing very quickly. Diego Ardiles and Cash Perkins, Benham Abernathy all jumping up the boards as the field is just getting the first couple of laps in. Vidmontien will answer again at a 48.410, 2/10 better than Hotz DD's Benham Abernathy on the 877, who has had a fun weekend here, an impressive weekend to say the least. For Benham, it's just been a race that I'd have to imagine was probably circled by them to be as fast as they are. So Benham Abernathy P2, Enzo Vidmontien P1, P3 for Alex Vanchev, and P1 on pit lane is our very own Caleb Viesca. Let's go down to our pit lane reporter for a bit of insights here on the day. Caleb?
Well, firstly, good morning, Xander, and good morning, Alex, to you, those of you guys in the booth. Just a quick report on a couple of the KA 100 categories throughout the weekend. A lot of changes overnight with what we have seen in turns number 12 and 13. A couple of the corners that a lot of drivers have been struggling in with all the rhino hide here. Last night, a lot of drivers were changing seat position, the stiffness of a seat, and just making those little changes. That's out here. We saw a lot of drivers two-wheeling, like some Myers and a couple of others as well across all categories. So that's definitely one of the characteristics of the weekend. But that's some cool insight that I thought I should share with you boys from last night. So I'll send it back up to you guys.
Appreciate the intel, Caleb. We're looking forward to hearing more from our favorite reporter here this weekend, and as well more from some of the fast drivers like Mad Max Weiland right there on the blue and white Magic Kart. Yesterday in qualifying for Max, it was okay. It wasn't overly stellar. It also wasn't a bad day at the racetrack either, per se, for the Magic Kart USA young man. Yesterday at the end of the blend, I believe ended up still pretty good as he looks at the heat races today. And while all of our KA juniors will transfer through to tomorrow's main event, I believe they may still run the heats as a split, and we will check in on that to confirm of the rest of them. But Weiland was smack dab in the middle, P24, so I guess actually I should eat my words a little. I'm used to having that group be a little bit bigger. 24-43, halfway through the grid for Weiland, and right now in this group, he has yet to crack the top 10. The fastest is still a couple of familiar names, like Enzo Vidmontien, the TKG Kart Republic driver, has gone out towards the back, so that's why you're seeing new names populate towards the top. But as soon as the laps even out, and he's one of the last ones to cross the line, he goes right back as the quickest kid by a tenth to 2/10 every single lap, Alex.
Yeah, I spoke to Vidmontien last night and even this morning, and he said he felt like he could have had 2 pole positions if the cards fell his way, and KA got held up on his fast lap. And in the X30, he put it P3 even with a bit of a reed issue on his motor. So looking for a little bit more here today out of the TKG Kart Republic. So far looking pretty good for Vidmontien. One driver that I'm keeping my tabs on here in the warm-up, and this is on raw pace so far, it's Ardiles, but as I say that, he slots at P4. So for the first about 3 or 4 laps of warm-up, he was down there in 14th. Found a bit more speed on board that Speed Concepts, the red speed there for Ardiles. So P5 now, 2.5 tenths back from Vidmontien. Chico Brown there, he's the pole sitter in the KA junior class. We heard him feel pretty confident heading into X30 junior qualifying yesterday. He said he got held up on his fast lap like we saw. The Delta said he had 2 tenths on pole. So looking for more in the X30 class as well for Chico.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Everyone's probably missing something. It's very, very rare you hear a driver come off the racetrack and say that they had a perfect lap. Even Austin Garrison admitted that he kind of overcooked it a little bit in the last hairpin on his good lap, and he nearly went 2 tenths clear of the entire field. So you can always get more, and your competitors feel the same. There's plenty of reasons or excuses if you want to find them, but you just got to keep on working. Vidmontien at 47.89 right now over Brown. A couple drivers bailing early for pit lane. Davin Roberts, let's watch him cross the line. He'll go to 7th. At his last lap by the loop. Vidmontien got checkered and pulled on in before the end, so we won't see him repopulate, but his quick time from earlier will still hold over Brown. Vanchev with a good session. Ardiles back in 4th. Sebastian Garzone, Braden Zerves, Davin Roberts, Nathan Dupuis, Cash Perkins, and then Ben Abernathy, the top 10. And that is mostly the same of at least that group that were in the top half from qualifying yesterday. Again, Brown will start on pole for all of his heats with the anticipation of them being split, and put Enzo Vidmontien on pole for 2 of his 3. Benham Abernathy was 3rd in qualifying yesterday. Garzone 4th. Zerves was 5th with a great run. Michael McGoy and then Diego Ardiles back in 7th for qualifying. And they were close for Vidmontien versus Turner Brown. They were even closer from 3rd back to 8th with Amador Martinez. Only a 10.5 spread. So a flick of the wheel, a small hiccup of any kind is going to cost anywhere from 5 to 10 positions with a class that close. And, well, let's watch and see how this second group fares as they hit the racetrack, and we'll see the times continue to roll from group number 1 over for an overall merge. But these groups being split the way that they are, we've got an even amount of fast drivers really in both, as we see Ty Fisher on that Race Lab TV in this group, Sebastian Garzone in this group, as well as Michael McGoy. So a good amount of our top 10 overall qualifiers in Group 2 as well.
Yeah, a bit of data points here in terms of comparing it to yesterday. That group that we just witnessed in KA Junior, that was the first time we've ever seen karts on the racetrack today. So we'll get a good look at if the track is similar to what it was from yesterday, or if the rain overnight has kind of washed a lot of grip out. So I expect lap times probably to tumble as the warm-ups go on. So a bunch of drivers from this group potentially could slide into the top 5, top 10, like you mentioned. A lot of heavy hitters still in this group, like the names you mentioned, Ty Fisher, McGoy. We have the likes of Brandon Saracki as well in this class. There's Fisher and McGoy going side by side through turns 10 and 11. Fisher looking racy early on here. I'd say the grip levels seem to be pretty similar. I think offline still looks slightly, I won't even say damp, but just lack of grip. So drivers still testing the waters there. I've seen a couple of drivers dip tires into the grass, not what you want to do after a rainy nighttime, wave of rain that came into Badger Kart Club here. So yeah, end of lap 1, not many drivers sneaking away into the top 10, 15 so far, just because that is the natural case here for a warm-up session. But as the session goes on, the next 5 or so laps, I expect these times to fall just because of the nature of the weather hitting the track.
Yeah, you can even see on the surface still the darker sections just at the edge right towards the grass where the water has kind of faded off, that we're not necessarily 100% dry. Those inside curves, there's a great look at the standing water still inside the rumble strips as well. So hit those and spurt that water all over your tires, and all of a sudden you're probably going to blow the very next corner. And that's the inside down at turn number 1. That's an inside curve that you normally do absolutely clobber. So there's plenty of opportunities to slip and slide, and I think that's also going to be the reason as to why you won't see drivers really start to move up the order from group against the Group 1 field until the end of the session. Right now, Ty Fisher's the best of group number 2 on his mean green TB kart, and he's back in 14th. 6/10 off the lap time that Enzo Vidmontien hit. This is his teammate Travis Pettit. We saw him, he had to go out in the slow group in qualifying yesterday, the first of the 3. He actually held up decently well when you kind of take a look at where he ended up. He was obviously quickest in his group, ended up 22nd, so that leapfrogs nearly everyone in not just his group, but the middle group as well. And it'll line him up potentially 11th for the heat races today. So, indeed, confirming here, we are going to run the split heats all the way through the day for both KA Junior and KA Senior. And part of that, again, the schedule being built with all that time baked into the Saturday is going to have them all still run their heat races. We just won't have to run any B mains, I believe. So, all of them transferring through, I think. The official schedule is showing that the top 43 in points would transfer than the top 3 out of the B main. Obviously, in KA Junior, we only have, I believe, 43. And in KA Senior, I think we have 45. But still, I mean, that would take all of them. So they're just going to, I'd imagine, cancel both of those B main races. But they will run split heat races. And I think that's pretty smart, Alex, because, we talk about this track not being draft dependent. That's because it's so tight, twisty, and narrow. So, if we're going to have really short races like we do with the 3 heats here at the U.S. Pro Kart Series, cutting that field in half and taking it from 45 karts barreling down to turn 1 down to 20 or so is a huge difference in safety.
Yeah, for sure. As awesome as that sounds, as Dean Peterson has spun on the racetrack, I wonder if that has to do with a bit of the wet patches that we saw inside the curbing there. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. You see Peterson trying to get, the tires, a bit warmed up now. Obviously, the rears were in the grass, so with the grass being wet, naturally these next couple corners are going to be pretty slow for Dean Peterson. But like I mentioned, as cool as it sounds to have, 45 karts barreling down to turn number 1 and 2, for safety reasons and for many obvious reasons, it's much better to have them split up for the short heat races. Gives these drivers a great chance, like Travis Pettit, like you mentioned. He was able to slide his way out of pretty much the C and almost the B group in qualifying. Spoke to him after the qualifying session. He said he actually wasn't very happy with his session because he got held up for the last 2 laps. We saw his best lap come on lap 3, when majority of the drivers did it on lap 4 or 5. So he felt like he had a lot more pace in the kart. You mentioned it earlier. Most drivers after qualifying are not happy unless they're P1. So yeah, a lot more pace on board that Race Lab TV Kart for Pettit, and it's gonna give him a great chance with these split heat races, like you mentioned, starting 10th, 11th, or 12th, depending on how it's split up in the heat races for him. So many passing opportunities. We saw on the track map, I'd say out of the 15 or so corners that we have here, 8 or 9 of them, you can throw a cart in there and make it stick pretty easily here. But I think this warm-up session that we're looking at right now gives us a pretty good overview of what we can expect. It's still going to be a slight bit of train racing just because of the nature of the KA100 category, whether it's junior or senior. So if you're quick, you can pull away around here, but with the slight lazy toe, we're seeing a lot of drivers struggle to pull away from somebody even if they're about a 10th off. So we're seeing it here with Michael McGoy. He's about the quickest driver in this slower group. I'd actually say Peyton Fan. She's slid her way up into the 8th position. Amador Martinez now out of this group up into the top 4. So the track is starting to plateau, I'd say, a little bit. So I don't think it's, you know, gripping up as quickly as people would have expected, or the racetrack this morning didn't lose as much grip as we thought.
As the checkers fly, the last few drivers will cross the loop and try to knock off the first couple from Group 1, but so far unsuccessful for them all. Eric Doan going to move up the boards a little bit on the Speed Sense Motorsports X-Prix, but it's all about Enzo. Enzo Vidmontien from Group 1 is quickest overall here in KA100 Junior, and he's standing by with us down in pit lane, so let's go down and chat with Trinity Karting Group's lead junior driver. Enzo, good session for you, and Alex brought up the good point that you felt like you had a little bit that you left on the table in qualifying yesterday. So first and foremost, how confident are you feeling with a good warm-up like that?
I feel really confident. Yesterday, Turner got first with draft. I was really close with him, and I had no draft. I feel really good right now. P1, I thought Group 2 would go faster because faster track, but they didn't, so I'm surprised about that, but yeah.
Yeah, that was what we were kind of paying attention to as well, trying to see if the track was going to pick up a lot. How damp and slippery was it for you guys being the second class to go out onto the racetrack? Was there still a good amount of water at different points?
Yeah, turn 1 on the curb. Every time I go on top of it, I kind of slide. There was water there. And like a few other curves, it was a little bit wet, but that's it.
All right, Enzo, we'll let you get back to working on your go-karts and getting ready to go fast again. We know you got X30 Junior coming up. We appreciate the time talking with us.
Thank you.
There you go for Enzo Vidmontien as the K100 Seniors first of 2 groups heads onto the racetrack. And that was a good point from him to confirm what our awesome cameraman down at Turn 1 was able to capture, and that is the standing water inside the curb at Turn 1 and as well over at turn number 4. The back side of the racetrack, you can see they're not using it as much. They've got that Rhino liner still with plenty of grip on it, but you can see how damp this straightaway is going to the last hairpin. So there's no major standing puddles on the asphalt itself, but it's definitely, it looks like a little bit drier in certain places than others. Alan Isambard on that Sodi Racing USA machine won on his debut round in Houston, but he didn't have the best of weekends when we headed to the second round of the championship in North Carolina at Trackhouse Motorplex. And of course, that round seemed like it even had a stronger grid than what we witnessed over in Texas, so it wasn't going to be easy. And unlike down at Speed Sports, that's only really been that hasn't been around as long with as strong of a club contingent as Trackhouse, you go to that circuit and you expect it to probably go up a tick. But still, he didn't have the worst of weekends either. He finds himself with a shot at the championship lead if he can have a really good run coming out of Wisconsin. 139 markers back from Cooper Shipman coming into the weekend. Of course, Cooper had a great run in qualifying to start things off, so he's looking a little better than Allen. But when we take a look at how they're all going to stack up for the heat races here in this 100cc senior division, well, Cooper Shipman will roll off third pretty much for every single heat race. He was 5th overall, so that puts him second in the A group. Jesus Vasquez Jr. enters second in the championship. He'll also start either 4th or 3rd in his sessions, being 6th overall. That puts him second in Group B. Finn Bailiff, who we're following now, he was right behind them in 7th, but you have to go back to 12th to find Alan Isambard and where he will be. That puts him third in Group D. Outside lane starting for every single start here. Now, Austin Jers was the quickest yesterday in qualifying, as you saw Bailiff get really out of shape in turn number 1. And he knows this place well, and you can survive turn 1 on the outside because it's such a fast and flowy opening 90. But very similar to what our viewers that follow the CKNA Summer Nats at Pittsburgh, that kind of consistent increasing radii corner really from turns 2 to 3 to 4, the dogleg on the backstretch. If you don't get down to the inside, everyone else will and take that shorter lane even though it's full throttle, and you'll drop back 3 or 4 positions. So yes, you can start good on the outside through turn 1 and not lose anything, but you've got to get down low early.
Yeah, nobody's going to help you if you're on the outside. I mean, it's one of those things where if you're starting on the even side of the grid, like you mentioned, turn 1, you can survive it, but as it keeps turning left through 2 and through 3, it's not really the greatest place to be. There's a look at A.J. Myers letting Kate Martin through there. A.J. was a driver that was on an absolute flyer on his final lap. We saw him almost grip flip in qualifying yesterday, just pushing a little bit too hard. His delta showed positive, but unfortunately for AJ, just pushed a little bit too hard. I talked to him. I said, listen, is that something that you can predict, or does it just happen if you push too hard? He says, listen, if you go through that corner a little too quick, it can just catch you off guard. And so even for a driver of AJ's caliber, it's something to look out for in the heat races. If somebody's trying to track another driver down, expect to see some drivers begin to two-wheel, maybe make some mistakes. And I think that's what makes this track so awesome to watch and different from other racetracks that we go to, is it can catch you off guard. No matter how many laps you do around this place, you can all of a sudden go through turn 12 and it feels different than it did the lap before.
Yeah, the Rhino is just so tough for all the drivers to predict, and especially because, again, it's not, through the entire racetrack. Their karts aren't perfectly set up for it. We heard from Chico a bit yesterday and a few others as well. You've got to strike some kind of balance of the regular asphalt over here on 90% of the circuit, and then those full black Rhino liner corners, the last 2 hairpins that have so much more grip in them that you're trying to keep the kart free and take grip out of it to get to these corners. You can see Donovan Bonilla's kart even bouncing through the left-hander and then the right, and even then he still looked pretty good through that sector. But the rest of the racetrack, you got to put some grip back in comparison, because it doesn't have as much grip in the surface as that back section does. So Bonilla that time did not go as quick as it looked like. I thought he looked pretty good there in that back sector, but ultimately it was not even enough to crack the top 10. His teammates look pretty good, though. Alan Isambard at the top, but Quentin McPherson now into second, and Raheem Alabai has cracked the top 10 as well in the 946.
The RPG's rolling here, but looking quicker than they did yesterday. I'd say I think the strongest team heading into today, they must feel pretty good, is the SCR team. They've been very, very quick in the junior and senior categories. Not many drivers here in the KA senior category. One more thing I want to mention, we saw it with Donald Bonilla, but a lot of drivers I've noticed through 12 yesterday were avoiding the inside curb. Today, a lot of drivers starting to use that inside curbing of turn 12. Maybe it's a bit of a line adjustment as the grip develops on that Rhino liner. Maybe people realize if we use this curb, it can help us turn without having to load those right side tires. Potentially, some drivers are still avoiding that curb, but interesting to see a bit of a line adjustment for a lot of drivers heading into today.
Yeah, and that line will, take a while to dry up. The line from yesterday, if they aren't taking that curb, at all right now, hoping that other drivers will. Granted, when we get to racing, some guys will probably get forced down onto it, but, a dry line forms because drivers are driving on it. So if they do not, hit the curbs themselves, that water is going to sit there for quite some time, because we saw the sun was shining in the first couple sessions. It's since kind of gone back to overcast skies. Yes, driving on the racetrack will bring up the surface temperature, but nothing will clear a path like a go-kart going over top of it. So checkers in the air for the rest of our KA seniors here in this opening group. And whether or not they use the curb, Alan Isambard and Quentin McPherson, quick times to start the day. Kane Martin and Austin Jers, a dead tie. In fact, 300ths for the whole top 5 back to A.J. Myers. That is the closest time session we've seen yet here this weekend. Still a full 10th covers the entire top 6. Back to Connor Ferris's Kart Republic. Max Altman at 10th and a half back in 7th. Emery Lyda 10th and a half in 8th. Steven Eisert back in 9th. And then Finn Bailiff 2.5 back down in 10th. And that's half the class, right? That was only, again, the first 21 to 22 on the circuit. The other half have yet to go back to go out as well. They may go a little bit quicker, or as we witnessed KA Junior, they may just kind of end up around the same and blending in and tightening up the gaps to the rest of the field as we go and check with the back half. The struggles not looking to unfortunately come to an end yet for Aiden Rudolph, who may see his championship get a whole lot tougher. He enters this weekend 6th, and that's why we've been talking about him as much as we have. 6th in the championship entering this weekend. James Overbeck 7th. Granted, with Jake Drew absent and Adrian Cruz out with an injury, 8th and 10th will change hands, and those two drivers will inevitably fall out of the top 10. But the man that is 6th in the points has seen now the entire top 5 qualify well ahead of him. Rudolph back in 31st. Everyone up the road at least into the top 20, I believe, at the end of that major time session yesterday. So good news, you got 3 heats to make things up. The bad news is all those heats pay championship points. As we follow James Overbeck around in the 948, he's got his new official BJR MDR offset suit there, and Overbeck enters this weekend back in 7th. He's the first driver that could leapfrog Aiden Rudolph in the championship. And when we take a look back at how they all fared in qualifying yesterday afternoon, well, it was a solid performance from James Overbeck. P11, which will put him on the inside for one of his heats, outside for the other 2. It puts him 3rd in the C group. So row 3 for all 3 of his heats, while in comparison, Rudolph going down in 31st is going to end up somewhere around the 8th row, I believe, for all of his heat races, either inside or outside. So that's how they ended up. It was still, again, in quali yesterday, Austin George, who was not the fastest, but P4 within 27 thousandths. We have this group featuring 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, as well as, I believe, 5th from yesterday's qualifying. Nick Terlecki, Mick Gabriel, Steven Eisert, Cooper Shipman. Jesus Vasquez Jr., I think, might be in this group also.
Yeah, from 2nd to 6th is also in this group. And then we have the likes of, obviously, Overbeck and Feldstein and others. Feldstein yesterday was pretty solid. Qualifying didn't quite go the way he would have liked. 15th for Alex Feldstein, struggling a little bit with too much grip. We've seen it with a lot of the taller drivers kind of complaining of just not being able to, free up the go-kart as much. Feldstein probably doing the best of the tall guys. You and I talked about it a bit yesterday, Xander, but yeah, it's kind of tough to be a tall guy. The one time it's not good to be tall, I'd say.
Yeah, well, in racing, there are sadly a few times that being a tall guy, speaking as a taller guy, that are not ideal, more than this track. But for sure, any high grip scenario, especially like what we've got in the back section, that's really, really tough. And like you said, that's why it makes it so impressive that Feldstein has been so strong. You can see on the circuit here kind of a couple of mid-sized fellas. Cameron Weinberg on the Chad Dawkin Racing Kart Republic. Pretty, under the radar Saturday or Friday afternoon for Cameron. And that goes along with how his championship has kind of progressed. 9th in the points coming into this weekend, 290 out of the lead. And is going to be a tick further back with the good performance in quali by Cooper Shipman. But still, anything can happen in these heat races. We went over a number of the different passing zones. I would not be surprised to see a fair amount of carnage just because this is a much narrower racetrack than what many of these drivers have grown up on. Here's the look coming down the front stretch. That's Beckett freezing there in the Arcane Tony kart. And we'll go back to find the 977 of Jesus Vasquez Jr. Now that's a kid who over the last few years has spent a lot of time on tight and twisty racetracks. Ever since the shutdown of Cal Speed Karting in Southern California, the California kid himself, Jesus Vasquez Jr., has turned a ton of laps over at Adams and Apex, the 2 remaining Southern California tracks. They are old school tracks like this one, tight, narrow, twisty, built when go-kart for about 7 inches narrower and a little bit shorter as well. And he's got a good amount of laps here. Aiden Rudolph is standing by while we continue to keep tabs on the second group of the KA100 seniors. And from one tall guy to another, Aiden, it doesn't look like you've had the most fun so far here in Dousman. Talk us through your weekend to this point.
Yeah, this weekend's been a big struggle for us, honestly. Every session we keep trying to nail the setup a little bit stronger, but never seem to get it right. So we keep pushing, and Every session we are getting a little bit closer, but we still need a lot to get up to where we deserve to be. So I can't thank the team enough, CRG Nordum, for all the hard work and the help. We keep pushing and hope for the best.
Yeah, now that warm-up session for you, how was the track conditions compared to how things ended up yesterday? Was it at least somewhat of a good read, or do you think we're still drying out so much that you're going to be going a little bit blind into heat number 1 today?
No, it was pretty similar. The rain definitely cleared out a little bit, but the last sector is still a ton of grip. So, it's pretty similar to how it was yesterday, and I think it was a good read for how we can go into the heat races for the rest of the day.
Now, again, you're over in the scale line. I can see you kind of looking off to the side and keeping an eye on other drivers. What are you looking for? Can you kind of give the viewers at home a little bit of a read into your mind of what you're trying to understand?
Honestly, just from a driver's standpoint, the lines. I mean, every bunch of people here were here last week in testing. There's a bunch of home track kids that, unfortunately, this weekend are a lot faster than I am. So, every little thing I can learn. There's a few corners on the track that I'm struggling, me personally as a driver this weekend. So, every little thing I can point out will help.
Aiden, we appreciate you being able to talk with us. It's good to see a smile on your face. I know that's not fun when you're struggling a bit, but hopefully you can get up there and continue the strong season you've put together and stay in the championship hunt, buddy.
Thank you, Xander.
All right, folks, that's Aiden Rudolph again with the CRG Nordam entry. Right now he has fallen down a little bit here in the warm-up session, about to where he qualified back towards 31st for the black and orange machine. But good to hear him as well. And I will give a big tip of the hat to Aiden Rudolph. It's very rare from drivers from the top levels all the way down to the grassroots to admit, hey, there's still a lot that I could do better. For Aiden to say, you know what, there's more speed in just me and in a couple corners that I can figure out. That is a sign of maturity, a sign of class, and a sign of humility out of Aiden Rudolph.
Yeah, that's the right word for it, right? Maturity. I mean, as a driver, you have to be able to just accept the fact that, listen, maybe he's just not quick this weekend. But like he mentioned, we got to speak to him yesterday. I mean, he's looking for more pace out of that go-kart. But once again, I don't think he's found much overnight. He's still about 5/10 off from what the best lap is from Jose Carlos Hernandez there up in P1. What a lap from the Orsalon driver there.
How about that? Yeah, the Orsalon Tony Kart to the top over Alex Feldstein and Alan Isambard. That's a statement there, especially being a full 10th better, Alex.
Yeah, for sure. And then Feldstein, we talked about the tall guys there, puts it P2 on board the Franklin Motorsports Maryland. So Alex Feldstein looking quick there. Isambard's lap held up to a third. Ryan Persing up to fourth on the National Motorsports EOS kart. And then Chase Buscalia, that's a great top 5 for the Chad Dawkins Racing drivers. While Quentin McPherson, his lap holds on for 6th. We saw Vasquez Jr., Shipman, their laps hold. Caden Martin's lap held. Austin Jers up into the top 10. A 10.5 separates your top 10 here. And we talked about Rudolph being down about 31st here in warm-up. Only 5/10 is what separates first to 30th. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot separating this field. It's pretty much what we've come to know and love about the KA senior class, how difficult it is to be fast. There's Christian Miles on the Race Lab TB kart, 18th. He wasn't really quick yesterday, qualified outside the top 20, spoke with him about really what happened. Clutch issue. He said basically the kart was driving like a direct drive go-kart, which is the last thing you want if you're a KA driver.
Yeah, and not only was it a 10.5, Alex, for the top 10 or 11, it was 400ths from 2nd to 11th of A.J. Myers to Alex Feldstein. So very, very tight spread for KA 100 Senior. But, again, kind of closing the notebook there on the number of drivers that were saying they could find a little bit more or need a little bit more speed. Nothing's perfect, and engines, chassis, they're built by humans. We have flaws. We are far from perfect ourselves. So you have to kind of accept as a driver that, the engines are never going to be perfectly equal. More times than not, you won't have the fastest one. More times than not, your go-kart may not be as perfectly set up as others, but you can always drive better. You can always find more speed in yourself, and it's important to keep that in mind and not just say, oh, well, my engine's a bit off, my chassis is a bit off, that's where the speed is. It's hard to take that ego hit because you want to believe that you're doing everything you can to go faster, and if that was fixed, yes, you might run a little bit better, but you can always do better behind the steering wheel. The Mini Swifts onto the circuit now here in the SOTA USA sponsored division. Alex Chandler in that bright yellow helmet for Iron Rock Motorsports leading around our group, but Parker Ives and the Ryan Perry Motorsport Nitro Kart crew had a great day yesterday. Major statement in qualifying. quite a hefty gap he was able to put on the field nearly every single lap. There is at points there that it looked like no one was going to end up even being close. Ashton Woon, best of the rest, just got within 2/10 of him, 10th and 3/4 back, but still 49.638 for Parker Ives was a heater, to say the least.
You want to talk about maturity. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that young kid right there. He's one of the youngest rising stars we have in North America. I mean, we interviewed him after his pole lap. He put about, 3 or so tenths on the field. And we said, oh, do you think you could pull away in the heats? He goes, oh, no, there's a lot of great drivers here in the Mini Swift class. And after that, if I was Parker and I put 3 tenths on the field, I'd say, yeah, I think we have a cart too. I'll go ahead and pull away in the heat races. But such a mature driver, knows the talent in the Mini Swift class, and he just keeps putting his head down. Caleb and I were kind of joking with him on the grid before practice 3 yesterday, saying, you're allowed to smile sometimes, Parker. And he goes, oh, no, I'm just locked in. That's what Sundays are for. And so for Parker Ives, I mean, his sights are set on tomorrow's final already. I mean, he just knows what's capable of that go-kart, but he knows he has to keep finding more pace because these Mini Swift drivers will continue to do so as well.
Yeah, everyone in this class is going to be taking a hard look at the data, getting some coaching from all of the experts and experienced drivers and former drivers that all make up the colorful paddock here in Dousman to try and close the gap to the 149. Now, his initial lap was pretty decent by the line right there. Let's take a look at as the times slowly come on in for this Mini Swift division. Ives at a 50.530 was his initial lap. Nobody was really even all that close. The next best was Josh Bergman. That was still just the first lap out, so I'll give them some credit that they're all building gaps, but that was very, very quick. Jose Carlos Murad was close. He did a 5.58. Let's see this time now as they're headed to the back, and it looks like Bergman's closed up a little bit to Alex Chandler. We're following along. Royce Vega, Lorenco Varela is just up ahead of him on that blue and green Sodi. And then there is one of the RPG Cosmics, that is Julian Rivera, just up the road in the 124. First time's coming by now at full speed with the field all spread apart. And it is Simon Klein with a big lap on the SLA Kart Racing Kart Republic. He had a good quali yesterday for the experience level of Simon and as well for the pace that's been shown. He was quick in his group. He ended up 12th overall of the 31 in Mini Swift. So a good qualifying effort for that young man. One driver that does have his work cut out for him here today is the 177 Franklin Motorsports Merlin of Jacob Majeski. It has been a weekend of just kind of get back up, get knocked down again, get back up again. Flipped on Thursday practice, disqualified at the end of qualifying. He'll have to start tail end for Heat 1, Heat 2, and Heat 3 today. We know there is a lot of speed in the 177. He'll have a long way forward, though, to try and fight his way to the front and potentially put himself at the helm of the field once again. As we check in now with a couple of drivers, including one that is in new colors today. That CRG black and orange machine is the first weekend that it has seen Aston Wyatt behind the wheel in the 121. His AR Academy Bureau Art have been worn out a little bit, and they were struggling for speed. And after talking to you and Jeffrey, he had a spare kart that ultimately did not have a driver for the weekend. And so Aston Wyatt has inherited the ride, and he did not get to qualify on it super well. I don't know if he ended up qualifying on it or if the change happened overnight. But right now for Aston Wyatt, he has moved it up into the top 20, so that's at least 9 spots higher than where he ended yesterday, as we've got a new kid at the top of the boards, Josh Bergman, in the 50.145 lap time, the TKGKR new quickest kid.
Bergman's been on it all weekend. We mentioned him as well as the likes of Royce Vega and a couple other drivers here in the Mini Swift category, struggling a bit in qualifying. That's natural when you're a driver moving up from micro into the Mini Swift category and, not having maybe the experience of what it's like to qualify with such, young rising stars in the Mini Swift category. So for Bergman, the pace has been there all weekend on the TKG Car Republic. Had a decent qualifying yesterday. Looking down the order, he's got a 10th on Parker Ives. Simon Klein, like you mentioned, great showing so far in warm-up. The lap times in comparison to yesterday's qualifying session, about 5/10 off. Part of that's track, part of that's just the fact that, you get the best laps out of your new tires in qualifying, so here in warm-up it's naturally going to be a little bit slower. How about it for Nico Katowski as well? He's been quick on board that U-Race machine. He's down in 9th this morning, only a almost about 2/10 back from the fastest lap time. Speaking of Royce Vega and Josh Bergman, they topped the board 1 and 2, 4,000ths of a second separate your top two. And then Braden Wagner on board the GFC karting machine there, 18,000ths back from that top spot. Then as Parker Ives, your pole sitter for all the heat races later today. Simon Klein, Woon, Nicholas Orbezo qualified outside the top 15, 7th in warm-up. Then it's Brandon Ing, Nico Katowski, Jose Carlos Murad. He has a top 5 qualifying spot for the heat races today. He's in 10th.
So great ending for Nico Katowski as we check down the boards through the rest of the mini Swift field, all the way down to Violet Marchdown in 30th. 30 able to turn laps. We are missing one from the entry list here on the end of warm-up. But 30 at least getting laps in. The only one that did not get a lap in was the 105 of Bashi Jimenez. So that concludes SOTA USA Mini Swift Warm-Up. We're going to take a moment to step away from the overcast skies here in Dousman, Wisconsin, and return. X30 Junior on deck.
This is Henry. Henry feels sad. Henry feels sad because it's time for his next big race and his go-kart is in bits. Henry doesn't know that Acceleration Kart Racing is the United States' #1 shop for all of your karting equipment needs. Henry also doesn't know that Acceleration Kart Racing can deliver anything from tires to race suits and even wheels directly to your front door or to the racetrack itself, quickly and efficiently, with tech support available 6 days a week. Poor Henry doesn't even know that Acceleration Kart Racing offers free shipping to mainland USA on selected product if you spend $200 or more. Do yourself a favor. Go to accelerationkarting.com and make sure that you are never left stuck on the pre-grid with Henry. Be smart and don't be like Henry.
Are you looking for an advantage in your competition? Well, Kart Class has done the hard work for you. We've traveled to your racetracks to give you the inside knowledge. So what does Kart Class offer? We've got drone footage that captures the racing lines, visual markers for your braking points, acceleration zones, and the best overtake opportunities on your racetrack. Pedal cam to show you where to brake and when to accelerate, and 360-degree footage to make sure you don't miss any parts on the racetrack. We've covered 13 racetracks in the United States, and Australia, you're up next. So visit kartclass.com to get your track information.
Are you ready to get behind the wheel? From Formula One to NASCAR and IndyCar, all the pros start here. For more information, check us out online at mcckarting.com or call us and go racing today.
Welcome back to Dousman, Wisconsin, here at the Badger Kart Club for round 3 of the United States Pro Kart Series. This is the 4th of 7 classes we have this morning for our warm-up sessions, and it's X30 Junior. 1 lap in the books, and it is Turner Chico Brown, top of the board, a 47.117. About 2.5 tenths clear of SOTA Kart USA's Alexander Vanchev, and Vanchev's had a great start to his weekend. Pretty quick in qualifying yesterday. Not as quick as Chico Brown, though. Chico Brown actually qualified 5th, Vanchev 4th. So Chico Brown had a little bit more pace. We talked to him yesterday and this morning. We mentioned as well. Pole in KA Junior. Thought he had pole in X30 Junior until got held up on his quick lap in qualifying on the 5th and final lap. We said it all morning. Drivers always think they have more in the go-kart in qualifying. So expect Chico Brown to be very quick in the heat races today, starting on that inside row, the 3rd row on the grid, but at least on the better side, I'd say, of the 2. He's on the odd side of the grid. So inside for the first 3 corners, expect him to make headway as the heats roll on. Here's a good look at Jackson Wolney on board that SCR Car Public there, actually, and he's up into the top 5 right now. Had a solid day yesterday. Speed concept as a whole has been very strong all weekend long so far. He's kind of they've been the team all weekend that have put everybody else on notice for how fast they picked up this racetrack, considering it's a track that they don't really go to very often at all. Speaking of SCR, Diego Ardiles, a 46.322, 3.5 tenths clear of the field ahead of Enzo Vimontienne. He qualified 3rd yesterday, and that's where he sits right now in the warm-up session. Spoke to him about what happened in qualifying. He said, for one, lack of toe, and 2, in the X30 class, a bit of a read issue in that X30 machine. Still able to qualify inside the top 3. Goes to show you the pace that he has on board that TKG Car Public. That's another team as well that has put everybody else on notice. We've seen how quick they are in the X30 Junior category. They've been quick in Mini Swift as well. Decently quick in the senior categories. So as a whole, TKG looking good so far. It's a good Friday for them. Hoping for an even better Saturday.
And as we continue to follow Victor Day Alencar here through the hairpin, you can see that even just a good gauge on that straightaway is the slow drying process of this racetrack. You heard from Austin Garrison, at least the main line can dry pretty quick, and that's one thing you can learn on a day like Friday, where we really spent the entire day in the wet. But we've got a lot of debris there. That is a piece of radiator tape just off the line there on the outside of turn number 1. But the track is going to dry at different rates, whether or not you get sun on it or not. We did have sunshine in the afternoon yesterday. We had a little bit higher temperatures. The cooler temperatures here this morning have, I think, kind of kept some of that water from evaporating as quick as maybe it would have 24 hours ago. So with the first times in, Jackson Wolney, 46.226 on the SCR red speed. There's a look at Diego Ardiles, who will just flash by and go a little better than his teammate. Happy to say, or happy is an understatement for Diego based on the debut with Speed Concepts Racing yesterday, going on the pole in X30 Junior qualifying, going relatively quick in KA Junior qualifying as well. And right off the bat here with the first couple of laps in the books for X30 Junior's warm-up, he's once again the quickest kid. 1/10 up on his teammate, half a tenth back to TKG's Enzo Vimontienne, Michael McGoy 4th, and Turner Brown's RPG Cosmic back in 5th right now.
Ardiles is naturally a very smooth driver, but one thing that's really caught my eye watching this entire lap here on board Ardiles' SCR Carlos Sainz go-kart, his hands are super slow and smooth compared to a lot of drivers still fighting the grip of the go-kart. SCR as a team has seemed to figure out this racetrack quicker than a lot of the other teams here. You look at Chico Brown flicking it into turn 1. Let's look at Ardiles' hands here. They almost don't even move entering turn number 5, 6, and 7 here. That kart looks to be on absolute rails, pretty much seemingly picking up where they left off at the end of yesterday's qualifying sessions. You mentioned it, quick in KA, even faster in the X30 Junior category. Let's look at the warm-up lap time so far. Continuing to tick down, a 46 flat now for Ardiles. Puts a 10th on his teammate Jackson Wolney. He has about 500th ahead of Vimontienne. A 10.5 separates your top 3. Then it's the RPM boys of Davin Roberts and Michael McGoy, 4th and 5th. Great showing for them aboard the X30 Junior RPM chassis. Then it's Turner Brown in 6th. So the pace that he would have expected heading in the warm-up, not as quick this morning for Chico Brown up into the pit lane there for him. His session's done there. So he's going to finish at least 6th, maybe a little bit further back. That is Edgar Rodriguez in 7th. Victor Alencar, we followed him for a bit of this warm-up session in the RPG Cosmic. 4/10 back from Ardiles. So once again, we mentioned it yesterday heading to happy hour. Similar conditions, I'd say, from the end of happy hour into this morning's warm-up session in terms of a bit of a blind session for these guys. They don't really know where the grip levels are like. But as it stands, we've heard from a bunch of drivers, really the only section of the racetrack that is different from what it was in yesterday's qualifying is those curbs, which I assume have probably evacuated most of the water at this point. The track seems to be gripping up quite nicely. The times are similar to what we saw at the end of yesterday. So the track will only get better. We saw the clouds rolling in, potentially showers. I don't want to say that because the radar doesn't say so, but at the end of the day, we saw yesterday more rain than we expected, so anything's possible here.
Great look there at the exit of that back hairpin, that rut that is starting to form of drivers going off. Look how nasty that is, how deep that is going, especially with the ground getting softer and softer. First and foremost, you got all that mud that gets tracked onto the racetrack. Someone drops a tire there, but with the softer and softer ground, they're able to dig in deeper and deeper the deeper that rut becomes over the course of this weekend, the more treacherous it could be, and the more that it could bend sprockets or at very minimum knock the chain off the rear gear as well. So that's something for a lot of drivers to be mindful of from track walks in the morning and also on their outlaps of every session to look for potential real danger zones or what has maybe gotten worse since the last time they have gone onto the circuit is now. The Nash Motorsports K100 Masters are on track. X30 Pro Senior will follow, and then it'll be time to go racing, folks. So if you're watching our coverage right now here on YouTube, we're about to go behind the paywall for all 3 heat races. If you are unable to subscribe or don't want to yet, you will be able to watch the replays later next week. But heat racing getting set to roll here from Millwright Raceway in Dousman, Wisconsin, as we've got our final 2 warm-up sessions on circuit now, beginning with the veterans here in KA100 Masters. But with still just a session to go to dry the track a little more, maybe those the little bit of standing water will clear out. I do have an announcement from Tim Coyan, the series administrator. We are confirmed now that we will not have the B mains for the KA Junior and KA Senior classes. So those have been erased from the Sunday schedule. There is a new Sunday schedule that is being prepped. Will be pushed out to the U.S. Pro Kart Series Discord. So if you need to join that, you're able to get the link off of their official website, or you can send a message to the U.S. Pro Kart Series social media platforms to make sure that you're informed. But a new Sunday schedule will be released without the KA Junior and Senior B mains. All 43 and 45 drivers will transfer to the main events. And the micro and mini Swift classes were originally slated for 20 laps. They have now been increased to 22 laps. So they will get 2 laps added to their main events. The rest of the classes running a full 25-lap main event here from Wisconsin. First lap in, and Laurentius Mardan is the quickest here, Alex. We ran into him yesterday afternoon, and he was just a couple moments too late getting down to the grid for qualifying. He'll have to start 12th for his heat races.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of joked with him saying, you know, he's a bit on Romanian time, I'd say, heading up into the grid. So for Laurentius Mardan, missed it by about 30 seconds is what he told us. The last car was rolling off when his go-kart was still on the stand. And as we all know, the rules here at USPKS, the karts have to be on the grid, placed down when that last go-kart is rolling out. And so for Mardan, pretty much missed it by about 10 to 30 seconds there, depending on how quickly you can get your go-kart off the kart stand. But for him, he said he's going to make it fun for us, just like he's doing here in the warm-up sessions. Starting P-last for all the heat races, but we know the pace that he has on board that Techno kart there. So for Laurie, looking to make things pretty fun for us today in the KA Masters class. Speaking of which, though, this is one of the closest grids I say we've seen in quite some time for the KA Masters group as a whole. Nicky Coelho, your pole sitter for all 3 heats. He's top of the board right now ahead of Mario Barrios, Martin Stone, TJ Nevels. The top 4 less than a tenth.
And, you know, this is even closer than where, or actually I shouldn't say that. This is about where they ended up from qualifying yesterday. 2.5 tenths spread for the top 6 to top 7. You know, again, same kind of story here. Now, times are going to get a little better as drivers are pushing limits like that. That was Miguel Mir getting a little sideways there at turn 1 and dropping the right sides off in the grass. That's another corner that might end up getting a heavily developed rut or you know, deep divot on the grass just past the exit curb, like we're seeing in the back hairpin. But close for the first 3: Stone, Coelho, Barrios. Yesterday, those 3: Barrios 4th, Stone back in 5th, and then of course Nicky Coelho was top of the heap in qualifying over Scott Kopp, who sits down in the 5th position here in this warm session. But he's making a move on Laurentius Mardan just up the road as we follow Miguel out of the final hairpin. The Ursuline Racing Tony Kart driver has some work to do, and I'm sure he's made some leaps overnight. Yesterday they were down in the 7th position when qualifying concluded with roughly 6 tenths to find to get to the pole. He obviously didn't have the best lap last time around, but is looking to close in a little bit this time now, chasing Christian Vomier and then Scott Kopp. That was my mistake. Mixed up the Techno karts that Scotty was getting by. But for Miguel, if he can at least follow Scott Kopp around, that would put him closer to the main pack of 6 that are all separated by 2 tenths or so. Right now, the main 5 separated by less than 1 tenth. 900s from TJ Nevels in 5th to Nicky Coelho at the top of the boards. That is very, very close.
Yeah, the biggest difference, though, as Mardan now makes it 4 thousandths between himself and Nicky Coelho. Yesterday was a Franklin Motorsports 1, 2, and 3 with Coelho, Nevels, and the likes of Scott Kopp as well. Today, looks as though the RPG boys, Technokarting, obviously didn't get to see them go off for qualifying. They have found some pace, and I mean, to see less than a 10th for the top 5 is something that we're not used to in the KA Masters class, but I'm fully welcoming it. It's going to make this an awesome couple of heat races, or trio of heat races today. There is the that is the 481, I believe, there of
Nicky Coelho.
Coelho.
He's in the black and green Franklin Motorsports Maryland. Easier to pick out from the white and green machines that most are running with. That lap was good for Coelho. It was better for Larry. Laurentiu Mardan, a 47.91 when he crosses the loop, and that puts him nearly 2/10 clear. So for a session that saw most of the top 6 be really close together, now they're 3.5 tenths apart, but 2/10 alone is Laurentiu Mardan's gap to the rest of them. So big lap for the 482. Technokart, Coelho still second. Mario Barrios again in his first race back after a scary injury in Orlando for the opening round of the SCUSA Pro Tour when he went against the young kids in KA Senior. Is third here in warm-up. Another good session. Hearing that he's still not exactly where he wants to be and where he feels fully comfortable physically makes it all the more impressive. Checkers in the air for the rest of the field here in warm-up. Let's see if there's any other movers and shakers. It doesn't look like there'll be much. Christian Vomir picks up a little, closes the gap to Miguel Mir, but the delta has opened up a little bit from where they ended yesterday afternoon, and it's the Technokart of Laurentiu Mardan that owns it by nearly 2/10 to Nicky Coelho, down to Barrios, Stone, TJ Nevels, Wes Steed, Scott Kopp, then Mir, Vomir, Paul Elefante, Junaid Dean, and then Andre Isaac, your 12 in KA 100 Masters, presented by Nash Motorsports. And now we'll go to our final class here of the morning's free coverage, X30 Pro Senior, presented by Rollison Performance Group. Saw Austin Garrison put a really good performance in qualifying. He and Norberg were trading the top spot back and forth until on lap 4, Austin laid down a flyer. 2/10 clear of the field. It's very rare that anyone gets that kind of an edge over the rest of the group here in a class stacked to the brim with talent. But Austin was able to do exactly that. Then beyond Ryan Norberg, Paulie Massimino, who kind of flew under the radar yesterday for most sessions, ended up third with a good lap on lap 4 as well. He looked like he might have even been on something a little better on lap 5, but he ran into the back of Alex Feldstein, who slammed on the brakes after getting passed by a couple of drivers, and both of them not being able to even try and go better on lap 5. Norberg did. ADT, Alessandro Di Tullio, also improved on lap 5. That ended up placing him P4 overall, as he was able to leapfrog ahead of Nicholas Terlecki, who ended 5th. Donovan Bonilla, 6th in qualifying yesterday over Holtz, Quentin McPherson, then Brandon Card, Harley Keeble, an all-British row 5. Feldstein, Eli Warren, Santi Fernandez, and Henry Lepard back on row 7. Zachary Clayman DeMello back all alone on row number 8. 15th alongside Brandon Lemke, and 16th. And then Mingnan Zhu had something of an issue for him in qualifying also. At Brandon Lemke, we saw he went out on the opening lap, and that was a driver that I would imagine most probably anticipated being the quickest or one of the quickest here, but he starts alongside ZCD, as we've got him on screen in the 363 Team Bennick and DPK America's Alonso Kart. So both of them will have to make some moves and make them quick to get up the grid before the leaders start to break away in these heat races today.
Yeah, I think row 8 is going to be really fun to watch with ZCD and Brandon Lemke next to each other. We have one driver who's not afraid to shake it up with everybody, and then we have Lemke, who probably has more laps around this place than everybody else on the X30 Pro Senior grid. There's a look at Alex Feldstein off the racetrack into the pits already, so either an issue or just decides to pull in early. Most likely with this early of a pit here for Feldstein, he's rolling up to the grid late. So Feldstein is late.
No, that's the scale line. It looks like he's pulled in. He's just bypassing the scales. So he's like, I don't even want to go to the scales right now. We've got a bigger issue to fix in heat number 1. So he's going to skip and to be fair, the scales in a practice session like warm-up, it doesn't count for anything, so it's a courtesy check. Doesn't have to go through it, but no. Initially, you were right there, Alex. In on the out lap for Alex Feldstein. Something amiss for the Holtz driver development Tony Kart. And that is a weekend here that, or a day that's gone from bad to worse. I guess a weekend from bad to worse. Good happy hour. Bad go of things in qualifying, and now a worse go of things without a single lap turned officially here in the warm-up. As the second lap is turned for the field, Ryan Norberg will go across the line and jump to, wow, only 8th. Nick Terlecki jumps to the top. Garrison second, Lemke third. Great opening couple laps from quick Nick Terlecki.
Yeah, that's Feldstein's teammate there, Nick Terlecki. Had a great qualifying yesterday, even better qualifying in the KA senior category. So he'll certainly be happy with the warm-up session so far for flying. Ryan, like you mentioned, you're kind of shocked there, crossing the line by himself in that 10th spot. But I'm sure Ryan, normally out there on the lowest tire pressures out of everybody on the racetrack. So I'm certain to see the number 1 plate towards the top of warm-up as the session rolls on here. He's all on his lonesome there. Behind him is Dono Bonilla. We see DeTullio now cross the stripe. He puts a 45.7 in. There's Lemke and Terlecki working together. What can they do? Down in 10th there for Lemke. Terlecki up to 7th. Josh Holtz, his teammate, up to 4th. A lot of shuffling for position as this session rolls in, as the track gets warmer, as the drivers get warmer as well. And as we mentioned, at the number 1 plate to the top of the board, a 45.705. 200th clear of DeTullio. Massimino 400th back. And I think Pauly, the other thing that's really cool to mention is he's one of the only drivers really in contention for both championships, a KA Senior and an X30 Senior potential.
No, that was just a one-off he had over at Trackhouse Motorplex.
Right,
yeah, whenever we go to North Carolina, we get to see Pauly race a whole lot more at home because, again, he's saving on the hotel bill and knows that track inside and out. But what is interesting about Massimino is that he is one of the few drivers that is showing up here for basically the very first time. He did not compete in the Millwright shootout last weekend like Norberg and Garrison did, a couple of outsiders, as well as DeTullio and Harley Keeble. They were here last week. Pauly was with us over in Pittsburgh for the CKNA Summer Nationals, racing for the PPK Coyote operation. So, he rolled in with the least amount of seat time. Nick Terlecki and Brandon Lemke, they've got a lot of laps here. Josh Holtz does as well. Holtz actually almost was able to steal all the money after Garrison had the engine let go. It was Josh Holtz tracking down the number 1 plate of Ryan Norberg. So for Pauly to be as good as he is right now is, a testament to himself, to BBS Race Engines and that BJR MDR group that have him running so good. He's not fallen out of the top 5 as long as the field has all evened out lap time-wise. Eli Warren there on screen in the War Power Racing Red Speed, the 397. This is his X30 Pro Senior debut, and it's kind of just an open expectation weekend, trying to see, how he may fare. And, his dad Keith as well is like, what, go for it. Let's have some fun. No expectations going in, no pressure, but you want to go out and perform. You want to go out and go against the best in the business. Well, here you go. Here's your chance. And he's got a lot to learn and kind of all to do it by himself, as he's the only privateer on the grid here in the X30 Pro Senior category. Norberg's going to reset fast time. Garrison will get close, and the checkers should wave in a moment if they have not waved yet. But now we're back to a more familiar top couple spots. Norberg over Garrison. Brandon Carr, who did not have a good quali, third. Terlecki, and then Harley Keeble as well, who's back there at the 5th row with Carr for the heats today.
Yeah, very familiar top 2, but Brandon Carr finding pace here in the warm-up session. Terlecki as well, looking good. Keeble ahead of his teammate now, something that Keeble would probably be pretty happy about, ahead of DeTullio, so 5th and 6th in the warm-up for them. Now a bunch of shuffling for position. Keeble and Massimino finding pace as well, 3rd and 4th now. Looking down the order, DeTullio couldn't find pace on that lap. Bonilla looking pretty good, about 3/10 back from his teammate Ryan Norberg, and then also another RPG driver in 12th, Quentin McPherson. He's been pretty quick in the KA Senior class, fighting a bit of gremlins in the X30 Senior category, but still getting used to the package there. So about 5/10 back for him. Lemke down in 13th on pace there is not what he would like out of the warm-up session so far. Henry Lepard there on board the RPG down in 14th as well. Eli Warren, really solid job for him, right? Still getting used to that X30 Senior package here. 6/10 back, But really, he'd probably, if we would have told him before the weekend he's a 10th behind Lemke in a warm-up session, he'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I would think so, right? Now through the back of the grid here for ZCD, I mean, this is a good takeaway. Santi Fernandez as well. I mean, they've now gotten themselves closer to the leaders than where they were at the end of qualifying. The delta through the entire field's around the same, but definitely a bit of a mixed bag of ups and downs for the group compared to where they ended on Friday. But two familiar faces from Friday's sessions at the top here again in warm-up. Ryan Norberg, the fastest. He'll start every heat from the outside of row 1 alongside Austin Garrison. And again, the big wild card and unknown going into the heat races will be Alex Feldstein. He's rolling from a bit further back in the field, but we didn't even get to see if the pace is back or if it's a bit further off as he gets 0 laps turned here in the warm-up session. So that concludes the on-track action. We're going to have the drivers roll through the scale line, and it's Flying Ryan over Austin Garrison, Harley Keeble, Paulie Massimino, and then Brandon Carr in 5th. Nick Terlecki, Donovan Bonilla, Alessandro Natulio, Josh Oates, and DeMello again, your top 10 with the morning sessions coming to a close. We're going to take a moment off the air. We'll come back with the members exclusive live stream for heats 1, 2, and 3. If you want to be able to watch those heat races, go to youtube.com/kartchaser/join, and you get to watch all of the heats here today. So that's what we've got coming up. That's not actually the proper schedule. We'll put the official schedule up for you later on. But we'll sign off here for the morning sessions, and we'll see you for the free coverage if you're just watching the free coverage tomorrow morning. And for the members-only live stream, you'll be able to see that when we come back here in about 20 minutes.